curious about how you felt that the atmosphere overall at Duke has changed.
Yeah, Duke has always been very good, first rate, and that's been a blessing. Would be happy to teach anywhere that give me a job, actually. But at a place like Duke, the students have already been winnowed out. They're already, valedictorians of the class and so on. Most of them already write well in literary and written composition. So they've all been first rate, but there's been some changes. And one of the changes is the amount of charity work the Duke Student Body does now. This movement I mentioned earlier to take up ideology up front as vitally important and maybe more important than the work of art itself, that has seeped into the culture at large, the youth culture in any case. And that's one reason why most of my students do a wonderful amount of charity work and every kind of thing you can think of, teaching in the local schools, tutoring, working for Habitat for Humanity. I used to have Duke students sometimes show up to help me pour concrete when I poured cellar floors for Habitat for Humanity. And these Duke students didn't know a damn thing about concrete, so it wasn't much help. But anyway, I appreciated their ambition and tried to get some work out of them. But anyway, across the board. And of course, they're much more cosmopolitan now because travel is so easy. It wasn't when I came here. But the idea that Duke fosters travel abroad as it didn't used to, all of that makes students much more sophisticated. I do think there's been a loss, as I say, because of the lack of a core requirement. I think we need to bring out more of that, not all of it. But otherwise, the single greatest difference is the disappearance of the grading scale. When I came here, and for many years after, it was expected of the Duke professoriate that if you had a class of 30 students, maybe one student would get an A, maybe no more than 3 out of 30. And you would grade down from there. If you got a B, that was a good grade. You should be proud, you should be pleased. That was the situation. And it held for quite a long time. What changed it to start with was the Vietnam War. That students got deferment to go to college in the 60s and early 70s. And if, let's say, we flunked a student, they would be in danger of being dismissed from the college. They would lose their deferment, they'd go to Vietnam. This was a terrible moral dilemma, because if they didn't go to Vietnam, some other young fellow would have to, and we're doing some injury to that person. Still, we tended to favor the people we knew as against those that we didn't know, and that's a human failing, I think, in general. So the grading scale went up very substantially in the aftermath of the Vietnam War, and once it goes up, it can't go down again. And then it kept going up, floating up and up, and of course this was partly what happened in high school as well. And so when we get these valedictorians here at Duke, a whole bunch of them at the top of their class, they're not used to getting B's or C's. And what do we do about that? Well, again, pressure to push it up. So now, as I understand it, several years ago, the average grade at Duke was an A-, average. That means a whole lot of them are getting 4.0s. And now I think it's actually virtually an A, as an average. And that means we shouldn't even have a grading scale as far as I can tell. But we can't quite do without it yet. So that's a dilemma that someone else is going to have to solve. I'll be retired before that happens. And I don't know how you solve it.